What's going on, everyone? Today we're just going to be doing a little experiment with um, perspective. So we're just going to be creating a simple but pretty effective and dramatic hallway scene. Hopefully it can show you how to use perspective to your advantage in storytelling. So first off, let's talk about document size. I would recommend making the aspect ratio of your document similar to the ratio of the dimensions um, of your actual hallway, at least the end of the hallway. So I've made it 3 by 5, so pretty tall and not very wide because I want the end of the hallway to look like that also. If you want like a wider hallway, I would recommend making a wider document. What this will do is, first of all, just give us like, I'll just make the composition look better. Um, and it'll also help us save a step later on, which you'll see. Uh, so the first thing we have to do in this situation is decide a vanishing point. That's just where all of the lines will go in the image. So for example, if we take a look at an image, just try to find one like this one, you'll see that all of the lines in the image go somewhere off the screen, but they all head towards one point, and that would be our vanishing point. If you look at not only like the edges of the actual building, but some of the lines on the building, like between the bricks, it goes towards the same point. Uh, the vanishing point is something that you need for your perspective artwork, and it's got to be consistent if you want to really sell the effect. So one thing I really like to use is Guide Guy. If you go to Window, More, and Guide Guy, also make sure that in View, like rulers are checked and guides are also checked because they're going to be very helpful. So with Guide Guy, I'm just going to make a vertical line down the center, a vertical guide, sorry. And then from the top ruler, I'm going to drag down. And I'm just going to decide that where these two guides intersect is going to be the vanishing point of my image. I like to keep it a little bit low um, for this shot, but depending on uh, kind of what you want to say, you can just experiment with having like this horizontal guide maybe in the middle or even up top. That way it'll look like kind of going up a little bit. So just experiment with it. You can get some really cool results just by changing the perspective. Alright, so now I'm gonna take the pen tool and I'm just going to draw like where all of the edges should be. So since I made the document size geometrically similar to the actual hallway, the cross section of the hallway, um, what I can do is actually just make triangles, just like that. And you know, if I made the document size different, I couldn't just like have the corners of the triangle on the corners of the document, and I might need to like make pentagons or something like that. So by making my document size have an aspect ratio the same as the ratio of the actual dimensions of the end of the hallway, that just saves me that step. So I'll make a new layer and make another triangle. I like to use different colors just to help me see what's going on. So some like this, then another, oops, sorry, new layer. Do not delete the old layer. That would not be cool. And by making these guides, we can make sure that all of the triangles point towards the vanishing point, which is what we want. Then maybe let's have a magenta one for this side. And then for the end of the hallway, instead of representing it using the pen tool, I'll use the rectangle tool, the shape tool, the rectangle. Maybe I'll choose yellow. Then I'll make sure that all 4 points of the rectangle are on the lines that we've created using those triangles. And that will make sure the perspective is correct. Now I want to make this a little smaller, so what I'll do is come over to Free Transform, move the anchor point of transformation to the intersection of those guides. So what that means is if I try to rotate it or scale it, it'll rotate or scale around the vanishing point, which is what I want. And then I'll just hold Alt and then make this smaller. Just like that. Maybe I'll make it a little bigger. Alright, nice. Then I press check. And you can already start to see that we've got some perspective going on here. If I get rid of the guides, you can see that there's it kind of starts to look like a hallway. Oh, I feel like I need to move this to the right just a bit. But yeah, we're already starting to see a little bit of something. Alright, so we're halfway there. Let's take a quick break and look at some hallway pictures. Oh, I don't know why I had this open, but that kind of looks like a hallway. Mario's Tunnel of Doom. How do I open this image? Alright, that's pretty cool. Alright, now let's get back to work. Alright, so now what we're gonna do is add some textures to this this thing, I guess. So I've downloaded some textures from Unsplash. If you just go to unsplash.com and search up floor textures, you'll find some really good ones. If you want to use the ones I'm using, I'll link them in the description so you can take a look at that. So I'll just drag this onto my document. Now what I'll do is right click and check clipping mask. So that way the layer will be limited to that red triangle that I've made. And then to put this into perspective is really easy. Just come to transform and distort and drag the corners to the corners of the shape that we made, just like that. And now you might want to make this texture like bigger or smaller. Just hold Alt and drag the edges, and what that'll do is change the sizing of the texture without changing the perspective, so maintaining the correct perspective, which is exactly what we want. Now we'll just do that for the other sides, drag on the other textures. Now, when I check clipping mask, you'll see that the layer is limited to that green trapezoid. I'm going over it really quickly here to save time, but you might want to spend more time getting that perspective just right, like making the corners match up. So again, hold Alt, drag, just like that. Alright. And then for this blue side, I'll use this texture. Clip it to the blue layer, and then distort, drag the corners into place. For some reason these are a little off. It's fine. Then drag the edges just like that. Oops. So that's a bit of an issue. There's just wait for the lag. Uh-oh. Alright, so clearly something is broken right there, but let's move on to the next side, because I don't feel like fixing it. Actually, I have to do this. I'll use the same texture for both of the side walls. Clip it and then distort it. Again, hold Alt and drag the edges out. Just like that. And then finally, for the very end of the hallway, I'll use this texture. For this one, I don't need to distort it at all. Clipping mask. Maybe I'll make it smaller. Just like that. So this bottom side, I think just something broke internally in Photopea. Maybe I made something too big. It's probably the case. Just try making it smaller. Hope it doesn't completely break. Alright, I'll try that. Alright, cool. Now what we have to do is add some shadows and highlights, mainly shadows in this case, but just make the lighting kind of match the perspective. So the effect I want to go for is like it's like lighter at the edges, darker as you go down the hallway. I think that would look pretty moody. So what I'll just do is make new exposure adjustment layers and then clip them to the texture layer. Just check clipping mask and then lower the exposure. Alright, so new adjustment layers. Just keep adding and clipping these exposure adjustment layers. And then to make it kind of fade out towards the end, just take the gradient tool, white to black, and make sure you have the mask of the exposure adjustment layer selected. And then just drag out to the edge like that. You can try it multiple times. If you don't get a perfect result first try, then you can adjust the exposure levels. Something like that. For the floor, I'll do the same thing. Exposure adjustment layer, clipping mask, reduce the exposure, and then take the gradient tool and just go down. Or that wasn't good. Let's just settle for that for now. Um, Again, exposure adjustment layer, lower the exposure, and then gradient tool. Then for the last edge, same thing. Just take the gradient tool, just go up. There we go. I think I want it to be a little darker, so I'll just reduce the exposure on all of these adjustment layers. Alright, so I think to add a little more drama and maybe tell a bit of a story with this image, I am going to add like a glowing door at the end of the hallway. So to do that, I'll make a new layer, take the rectangle shape tool, set the color to white, and kind of just draw a rectangle, just kind of like that. No, and just take the move tool and drag it into place. Something like that. Alright, now to add a highlight onto the floor to really make it seem like there's like light coming through this door. Should be like the light should be falling off onto the floor. So cool trick to do that. I'll duplicate this shape layer, come over to free transform, and then kind of just drag the edges of the rectangle so that it aligns with the bottom of the floor. Then if I come to perspective transform, I can drag the top left corner so that the entire rectangle lines up in perspective. And if I hold Alt and drag the left edge, you can see that I make the rectangle smaller, but maintain the correct perspective, just like that. So pretty cool. Now, to make it fade out, I'll add a layer mask and take the gradient tool again, just fade it, just like that. Alright, so now for probably the hardest thing we're gonna do today. A realistic highlight should blur out towards the end. So for that, I'm gonna make a new color fill layer that's black. Put it just below that highlight layer. And I can merge them into one smart object. If I clear my history real quick. Now I need a kind of a depth map for the blurring. So I'll make a new layer and again use the gradient tool to make the stuff closer to the camera, make it white, and use black to indicate that it's farther away from the camera. Now if I come over to the channels tab, just hit selection and come over to save selection. You'll notice that I have an alpha channel. Sorry, delete this one. You'll notice that now I have a new channel that has the depth map layer in it. Now if I delete this layer in layers, it's still a channel, so that's pretty cool. Now I can use that channel as a depth map for lens blur. If I set the depth map to that layer, and you'll see that it blurs out towards the edge, and looks like it's lagging a little. I would like to blur it towards the edge more, but I'm a little hesitant about this because last time I tried this, it crashed, which is kind of funny. Now if I set this layers blend mode to screen, and then I decrease the fill, you'll see that it's not a bad looking highlight. Now instead of decreasing the fill, what I might do is come over to blending options and add blend if. If I just hold Alt and drag this right triangle from the shadows of the background, this might make it blend more naturally. I would recommend spending more time to refine it if you're making your own artwork. I am just going fast to save some time here. Alright, now I'm going to use the app I made, Super Bloom, to add some glow to the door, really make it pop out. What I'm gonna do is save the file as a PNG, just temporarily, and that way I can import that PNG file into Super Bloom and then create the glow in Super Bloom, which I can then add back to Photopea. So let's just do that real quickly. The default settings work pretty well already, but might decrease the depth a little. And yeah, that adds some pretty nice bloom. So be sure to check out Super Bloom if you haven't already. Now I can export it, just bring it back into Photopea. drag the exported image onto my document, set that layer as blend mode to screen, and we've added some really nice glow. Now, maybe just some final color grading, a levels adjustment layer to make the shadows darker, maybe the midtones darker, maybe the shadows less dark. Just play around with it, have some fun with the final color grade. And then maybe add a color balance, like bluer shadows, take away some of the reds in the highlights. Just something like that. Pretty fun. This looks a little too dark. Might just do that. Alright, so you can spend more time on this, maybe add some details to the walls, like hang up a poster to maybe add some like chandelier, I don't know. But you can do a lot with this. But as you can see, with not too many layers, we've already made something that looks pretty cool. And that's all I'm gonna talk about in this tutorial. Hope you had fun with this, and I'll see you in my next one.